Welcome to the Labyrinth. I'm your host, Pratham Padav. My guest today is Srinivas Kakilaya, who is a senior physician in internal medicine practicing right here in Mangalore. He is also actively involved in progressive movements that promote rational thinking and scientific temper. In the past years, he's written numerous articles and books on subjects like COVID-19, diabetes, obesity, diet, nutrition, and more. Dr. Kakilaya, welcome to the show. I want to start by asking a question that I've been wanting to ask from the past few days. What happened that day in the supermarket?
I went to buy a toothpaste. That's always. Now, it's only 4 hours of buying, 6 to 9. No, not even 4 hours. So I was in a hurry, went to buy a toothpaste. I had my hospital mask in the car, which I didn't want to wear. Fully well that I have had COVID, so I'm not likely to get the infection or not likely to spread it to anybody. But then I was not stopped. I was allowed to go. I was allowed to buy, and while coming out, I was stopped, and the scene was created. That's what happened.
Okay, that incident was small, but from that incident, bigger questions need to be asked. Like, do you think a person who has already got COVID need not wear mask, and why?
It's not. See, this is the issue that it's a larger issue which needs to be now debated all over the world. What I'm see, there are a lot of reports now. Even yesterday, which is reported in media today, Lancet has carried a report of long care homes in the UK. They have done a very elegant study where they have shown very clearly that those who are already infected are unlikely or never going to get reinfected. So now world over, there are 3 categories of people. One, those who are already infected with COVID. They are in crores. Already in India itself, the number of infected people is expected to be around 80 to 90 crores or even more. Okay, at about 40 to 50% or 60% of the population after the second wave. Then there are those who are yet to get infected. And there is the third category who are right now going through the infection. So those who are already infected are outnumbering those who are yet to get infected. And those who are already infected are immune, and they are not going to get the infection again. They are not going to spread the disease to anyone. So now I'll just raise this issue of vaccination. Why should anybody who is already infected take the vaccine? No. What is the idea of giving the vaccine? It is you are introducing a small portion of the one of the 29 proteins of the virus into your muscles, and it produces only limited immunity of IgG. Okay, it doesn't induce any local mucosal immunity in the throat and the nose. Whereas someone who is infected is going to get all the IgA, IgM, IgG, so he's going to have immunity everywhere. So therefore, there is never in the history we have given vaccines to those who are already infected and recovered. So there are several issues which need to be discussed, debated. Of course, that was not I was not trying to make any point when I went there. I went there to buy a toothpaste.
Okay. And what do you think about this current lockdown? Do you think lockdowns are a good way of fighting this pandemic?
No, that's what I'm saying. We had a very detailed discussion today. Again, I'll repeat what I said there. See, lockdown has been copy pasted from China, okay, without even probably knowing what they did, whether the same thing can be replicated elsewhere. Now, what do you mean by lockdown? Lockdown is locking down people into their households for 1 month, 2 months. They did it for almost 53 days in China. So people were locked up and they were visited by the workers of the what they call as grid committee or ward committee, whatever you call it. And then they were given food, they were given medicines, they were checked up twice or thrice a day. Everything was done, and those who were feeling sick were shifted to the hospital, COVID hospital or whichever hospital they needed the care to be in. So this was done in China, but can that be done anywhere else? It can't be. No, and that same model was not replicated anywhere else. But some countries like Sweden didn't lock down at all. Questions were raised, but then they have managed fairly well. No, they didn't have enormous number of deaths or whatever is being painted about COVID. They didn't have that. And Vietnam, for example, there are so many countries where this kind of even Japan, the stringent lockdowns were not imposed. Whereas in some of the countries, lockdowns were imposed, but the people were given all the benefits that they would have otherwise got without a lockdown. Salaries were paid, then money transfers were done, and food was provided. Everything was provided. But here we are neither providing them anything and no support, and we have just we have done a shutdown. This is what I keep repeating. This is not a lockdown. This is a shutdown where you have shut down all the businesses. You have shut down schools. You have shut down colleges. You have shut down all the public activities. You have shut down gyms and gymnasia and swimming pools and playing facilities and stadia. Exercise is so very important in keeping your immune system healthy. So we have shut down everything. So and to add to this, you see, there is no report anywhere from the world, which now in the last 1 year, which shows that lockdown has really helped in reducing the transmission or reducing the number of deaths or reducing the prevalence of the disease. In fact, all the reports show the contrary, that this temporarily 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, the cases may seem to be going down, but overall the prevalence doesn't change and the mortality doesn't change at all. But on the contrary, the adverse effects of lockdown are proven. Everyone is experiencing that. There is economic loss, there is a loss of jobs, there is loss of food, there is loss of nutrition, there is a lot of education for children. So everything is lost. So we have destroyed the present activities, and we are destroying the future also by negating education for our children.
But most people who I talk to, they are for lockdowns, for masking, double masking, some of them are even for mandatory vaccination. And most people's emotions are what is driving them to take these decisions. They're not thinking scientifically, they're thinking emotionally. What can we do?
No, see, that's what I've been saying. We need to be, first of all, lot of hype and mass hysteria kind of thing has been created with regard to COVID. All right. Similar attempt was made in 2009-10 when we had H1N1. Okay. But then some of the political leadership in India and elsewhere were more mature, and they managed it quite carefully. And after 9 or 10 months, WHO apologized for having created that kind of a situation. They said we overestimated the problems, so on and so forth. And attempts were also made to create a vaccine and to inject everybody. Vaccines came here, but it flopped. This happened in 2009-10. Now, similar attempt was made or is being made with regard to COVID, but this time they seem to have succeeded. No, all our rights and liberties have been taken away. Nobody is asking any questions. Exactly. It has been made out as though whoever is getting the corona is going to die of this. But the reality is entirely different. The mortality in corona, which was stated by Stanford University epidemiologist Dr. John Ioannidis, April 2020, he very clearly said that the mortality of COVID is predictable. It affects more than people of 60 plus age group mainly, and those who already have what are called as metabolic syndrome disorders. Otherwise, COVID doesn't do anything. So more than 99% of population who get COVID, they recover very easily without any medicines. So therefore, why all this hype? No. So we need to tone down our panic. We need to think objectively. We should not allow our senses to be blunted under this fear. No, that is very important.
Do you think to a certain extent WHO and even IMA misled people by putting too much fear in our minds?
No, I won't blame WHO. See, if you very carefully go through what WHO has been saying, no, WHO never, now, for example, take the instance of lockdowns. WHO never ever advised lockdowns. But when the countries on their own started locking down, what WHO stated in its statement, position statement on lockdown, WHO very clearly states some countries have chosen to lock down their uh, countries or areas, but it should be done keeping in mind the social and economic and other hardships that lockdown can cause. WHO is very clear about it. WHO cannot force any government to act, as per, it cannot dictate governments. Now take the example of ivermectin. When two state governments in India, this happened very recently, two state governments in India wanted to give ivermectin to everybody above the age of 18 years. So immediately WHO issued a statement through Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who is a very respected scientist, our own scientist, who is now the chief scientific advisor. She issued a statement, she tweeted that WHO doesn't support the use of ivermectin, and the company which invented ivermectin or developed ivermectin, Merck Laboratories, they also issued a statement that it's neither safe nor effective against COVID. So sometimes WHO does put its foot down and say, don't do this. Now take the example of remdesivir. WHO has very clearly stated that our considered recommendation is against the use of remdesivir. WHO said it in such very clear terms, but we continue to use remdesivir. So I will not blame WHO. When I'm coming back to IMA, IMA has largely been silent in this, or it has played second fiddle to whatever the government has been saying. It has not used its independent faculties to either give its own opinion or change government's opinion. So IMA has not played a very active role in managing or advising people on COVID, but not WHO.
Okay. Recently, coming back to the supermarket incident, after that incident, IMA Mangalore chapter criticized you for not wearing a mask, and recently you have filed a case against them. Why did you file a case against them for that?
No, I have not yet filed a case. I have sent a legal notice for whatever they did. See, now the matter is sub judice, so I cannot comment at length on this. But my own understanding and with what my legal counsel have told me is that it is and there is an audio recording which went viral, in which one Mr. Pai very clearly tells the shop owner that you should file a case, and the shop owner in turn says, I have been asked to file a case against me, and that was filed sometime at 1:30 or so. So before earlier to that around 10 o'clock or so, I don't know the exact time, there are a lot of messages from IMA, so-called leaders of IMA, who also made some videos stating that this man is a disgrace to our medical fraternity, police should take action and all that. So I do not know, maybe these things, the overreaction, that's what I have stated in the notice that I gave to IMA, that this kind of a overreaction and going to the authorities, seeking my immediate arrest, would have probably played a role in a case being filed. But I see, it was, for me, it is an incident. I wouldn't go into the merits of and legalities of wearing, not wearing. It's for the legal system to decide. I have fullest faith in the system. So they have to decide. But leaking it to the social media, then on to the national TV channels. So I have stated in all the interviews that followed that what pains me is the fact that this incident is found to be worthy of a national news. No, when a country is going through such difficulties, people are dying, there is no oxygen available, hospital beds are not available, and drugs to treat COVID people are scrambling for these things. And so job losses, schools are closed, no clarity on exams. There are several issues related to COVID and other issues. Instead of discussing all that, morning to evening, the local vernacular channels and some national channels went on broadcasting it. That pained me for that reason, not because I was shown. Because what does it mean that the national media and the local Kannada media has nothing else to discuss? But one ordinary doctor in a small town called Mangalore, why should that become a national news? I don't understand. Even now I fail to understand. And IMA has gone to the authorities, seeking my arrest. And the very same IMA doesn't, that's what we have said in the legal notice, which I think they only released to the media. We have not released it to the media from my side. I don't know the wisdom behind releasing my legal notice to the media by IMA itself. Anyway, it has been published in one or two web portals. So now I can say about it because they have released it. So where we have very clearly stated that no, you have not uttered a word on COVID. You have not uttered a word on people facing difficulties, but you found it necessary to meet the authorities within 10-15 minutes of seeing the video and claim that I am a disgrace to the profession. If that is IMA's, what do I say? If that's what IMA thinks, then I think IMA needs to set right its thing.
From the very beginning, Doctor, you've been saying that masks are not necessary. Even during last lockdown, I don't think you were wearing a mask. I mean, from 1 year, you've been treating patients without mask. You've been against lockdowns. And then what is the alternative? How do we treat COVID if not the lockdown?
No. I have, see, I am not a person who will simply make some criticism and run away. Now, with regard to the mask, nowhere I have said don't wear the mask. I have not stopped anybody from wearing a mask. I have not written or spoken anywhere that mask should not be worn. Me and my better half, Dr. Balasaraswati, we wrote a book in Kannada titled Corona Hedaradirona, Don't Fear Corona. This was released on August 15th last year. If you open the book, chapter on prevention of corona, we have detailedly given about masks, where exactly it is helpful, what kind of a mask is helpful, and all that we have written is based on the recommendations of CDC, European CDC and WHO. And even now, whatever I am saying here is none of these things are from my pocket. It is all from the most reliable research papers that are being published every day. I quoted Lancet a little while earlier about the British study. So all these are based on the research studies and other studies that are coming. So with regard to mask also, my position has been that of CDC, WHO or ECDC or Government of India. I have the instructions released by the district administration last year that those who are not able to maintain a physical distance of 6 feet, those who are to be very close to a patient, those who are treating a patient, no, they need to wear the mask. All right, there is no question about it. And when you wear the mask, it is better to wear N95 mask if you really want to get the protection. Okay, other masks may protect, may not protect. That is why in Sweden, where the topmost epidemiologists have been advising the people directly, their mask was never made compulsory because the same reason that when somebody wears a mask, he gets a false sense of security and he may not maintain physical distance and all those things. So, but Swedish laws are different. I am aware of that compared to Indian laws. So I nowhere in the book or nowhere in the several webinars that I have done or writings that I have done, articles I have written, I have not asked anybody not to wear the mask. So even now, my position is clear that those who are treating a COVID case, those who are symptomatic should be sitting at home. They should not go out and monitor themselves. And inside the house, they need to wear a mask if they are going close to somebody else in the family, particularly the vulnerable ones, the elderly and the ones with the problems. So this position is very clear. Now, once I have got infected, I am immune, and I have research papers to show that, to buttress that position. So I am immune. Anybody who is infected is immune, and the chance of getting infected is almost nil, and the chance of transmission is also almost nil. So not wearing a mask, I am not going to put anybody at risk, nor am I putting myself into risk. And as far as treating a patient is concerned, see, I studied in a government medical college. So I would like to see the face of my patient, because this is how we are trained. The face says so much, whether the patient is in pain, whether the patient is in anxiety or whatever. So I would like to see the face of the patient. And similarly, the patient needs to see my face. So I maintain the distance whenever I examine the patient, wherever I am. So I follow all the precautions. All right. So I don't put anybody at risk, nor do I put myself at risk. That's how I have been treating my patients. and there has been no problem with that.
Okay. And speaking of vaccinations, do you think young people need to get vaccinated? Young and healthy people?
No. See, vaccination, again, what is happening is, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Now, let me be very, very clear about it. Because today the situation is such that people do not have the patience to listen or read and try and understand what this guy is trying to say and why he's saying what he's saying. That is the biggest problem. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. All the vaccines that are of proven efficacy and safety have to be taken, and this I have made very clear in the TV interviews that I have given on different channels, that if you are bitten by a stray dog, would I say don't take? No, I will insist that you need to take the vaccine. Newborn baby vaccination, of course they have to vaccinate. All right. So there are no question about those vaccines. They are time tested, proven, effective, life-saving or disability preventing. They have to be taken. Now, when we come to COVID, the situation is completely different. All right. Number one, these vaccines are yet to be tested completely. Now you see every day one or the other report is tumbling up. Just now I was reading that a tweet by a biotechnology scientist who was a co-founder or a top-level scientist in Moderna, which is one of the makers of mRNA vaccine. He tweeted that those who have taken mRNA vaccine could be shedding spike protein. That tweet has been taken down by Twitter as fake news. So now he has written to Twitter, look here, I am the scientist who is a pioneer of mRNA technology. So I'm saying this is possible, and you have removed my tweet. So what I'm saying, and these questions I did ask in March, this March itself, when mRNA vaccine was rolled out, I asked this question to my relatives who are in the US, who have taken the mRNA vaccine. I asked this question to my own MBBS batchmates group. It is on record. I asked how long mRNA vaccine would remain inside the body, this mRNA particle. How long would it, see what it does is it converts a human cell into a viral decoy. The human cell will start producing a spike protein. That's what the mRNA vaccine does, right? So how long this spike protein production will go on? 6 months, 8 months? Is there any time limit? Is there any study to show that it is limited to certain extent or certain duration? No answers were provided. Nobody had the answer. But then everybody said, no, when scientists are saying we need to take it. No, that's not how science works. See, science is all about questioning, by being skeptical. Yeah, to tell you, maximum amount of money is being spent on proving Newton and Einstein wrong even today in sciences. No, you must be aware of that. So just to prove that Einstein's theory is wrong or Newton's theories are wrong, lot and lot of research, lot and lot of money is being spent on that. So that is science. We need to be skeptical. We need to ask questions. But if you try to brand somebody who is asking question as an anti-vaxxer, is against vaccine. No, it is not. I am asking genuine questions about every vaccine. Now come to Covishield. Okay. It is, so many people say it's an Indian vaccine. So if you're questioning that, you are anti-Indian. No, it is. See, these are the issues. We do not even know the basic facts. Covishield is not an Indian vaccine. It's a vaccine developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca company. And studies have been done in several countries of Brazil and South Africa and UK and of course India. Dr. Gagandeep Kang, who resigned as advisor to the government of India in last June, when the government tried to hurry through the vaccine trials, she resigned. And she is one of the topmost vaccine scientists in India who developed rotavirus vaccine. So she is on record last December saying that Indian data on this particular vaccine has not yet been published. And she asked this, it's not me, Dr. Gagandeep, and she has written several times after that. Now, why is this data not published? Dr. Jacob John, one of the topmost virologists and scientists of India, he asked this question. Why does it cause neurological complications? And this particular vaccine has caused thrombosis of the veins with the decrease in platelet count in some of the patients in Europe, where they took it very seriously. They investigated and they found that this particular vaccine produces a very peculiar antibody. And probably the peculiar antibody is because this vaccine is a mixture of a chimpanzee adenovirus inactivated, spliced with coronavirus spike protein. It's a new thing that you have created in the lab, which you are injecting, and it could cause certain, even though very rare. So what I'm saying is science is all about questioning, science is all about investigating, science is all about being skeptical. So the studies are going on. So about the vaccine, I have only this thing. Number one, not these which is as fatal as rabies or as disabling as other diseases. Number two, now we know very clearly over the last 1 year's experience who are the people who are likely to get complications and what complications and how the complications develop. So we know it is the elderly, we know it is diabetics, patients with blood pressure, obesity. So there are methods to protect them. Even otherwise, change their food, change their lifestyle, they'll be protected. So why vaccinate people without even having enough data on the efficacy and safety? Now look at the schedule of the vaccine. Why is that happening? Initially they said after 128 days, then they said after 6 to 8 weeks. Now they are saying after 12 to 16 weeks. And initially they said everybody should take, now they say infected can wait for 6 months. So every day the statements are changing. Every day, the goalposts are changing. So these are the questions I'm asking. I'm not saying don't take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine, but certainly for youngsters, who do not have any comorbidity, who do not have any problem, very healthy lifestyle, and I don't know whether the vaccine will give any additional benefit. And definitely those who are already infected. Now the government, I have been saying from last November, December itself that those healthcare workers who are already infected probably do not need the vaccine. Now a lot of reports have come, a lot of articles have been written, and now the government of India also has said that they need not take the vaccine for at least 6 months. Okay, maybe 6 months later they may say if you are infected, you don't have to take the vaccine. So there are so many issues related to the vaccine. But one last point about vaccine is it appears that there is an attempt being made to deny university admissions or deny school opening for those who have not taken the vaccine. That is very
in some states they have said that they will not be giving salaries for those who are not vaccinated.
No, that's what I'm saying. These are very unfair and also illegal. I'll tell you why it is illegal. See, the government of India right from day one has made it optional. Okay. The government of India has not made it compulsory at all. Laws in the country are made by the parliament, government of India, and whatever government of India says is followed by the states. So when the government of India is very categorically stated, taking the vaccine is optional. How can a particular company or a particular school or a university or college make it compulsory, or an airline or a bus fellow or a car, what do you call them? Companies which aggregating companies, they cannot make their own rules. How is that possible? Now, very interestingly, today itself, it is reported that our Honorable Health Minister has in the G7 summit very clearly stated that India is going to oppose any idea of vaccine passports. That's a very categorical statement made by Government of India. And the same thing the government should follow in India also. See, what is vaccine passport? That you give privileges to those who are vaccinated. Now, I am sitting here who has been infected as a doctor treating my patients. And there are many, many doctors, many healthcare workers. We got infected on the line of our duty. We didn't wait for the vaccine to come. We worked right at the front of this fight against corona. So many of us got infected. We got cured on our own. All right. Now, having got infected, there is no need for us to take the vaccine. That is why among healthcare workers, maybe only 51% have taken the vaccine, and the second dose is taken by only 25% overall. So now, if you are denying any privileges to those who have not taken the vaccine, those who got infected on the line of their duty, you are doing a lot of injustice to them.
Yes.
Secondly, it is like a vaccine company will now decide who is going on a flight, who is attending school, who is going to a university. That should not happen. No. Yes, so this needs to be questioned.
It's a form of discrimination, I would say.
Yes, that's the exact word Honorable Health Minister has made in the G7 summit. He said it is very discriminatory, and India has vaccinated only about 3% of the population. Long way to go. So you are going to deny the privileges, whatever privileges to a lot of Indians. No, but I wish the government makes it very clear to all the companies and schools and colleges, university in the country also, that you cannot deny the benefit of anything to those who are not vaccinated.
Doctor, when do you think COVID-19 will evolve from pandemic to an endemic?
No, it is no more a pandemic. See, in most of the countries, it is already come down. It is now, even in India, it is epidemic in few places, and it will go on. See, I had stated on 13th March 2020 that once this is a respiratory virus, which spreads quite easily by talking to each other. In no way you can control this. It's impossible. No mask or no mask or lockdown, not lockdown, even vaccine. No, let us be very clear about the role of the vaccine. I did mention earlier that vaccine does not give you surfacial immunity, that is immunity of the mucosa. So even the companies are saying it doesn't stop you from getting infected. So you can still get infected. All they are saying is maybe it will prevent you from getting severe disease, or maybe it may protect you from death. But even that doesn't seem to be happening. There are a few reports. Anyway, let us not go into that. So vaccines are definitely not going to prevent the infection. This is what the companies say. And so therefore, transmission is not going to be controlled by the vaccines at all. So therefore, transmission will stop only when almost everybody gets infected, which may be when we reach about 72. That depends on the infectivity of the virus. For example, measles, the R naught is about 15 to 16. That means one person infected with measles will spread it on an average 15 to 16 people. So against measles, you need to have 95% people being infected or vaccinated with MMR to reach a herd immunity. COVID, it's about 5 to 6, the same infectivity. So about 70% population, that's what is expected to reach the level of herd immunity. Maybe now about 50, 60 are infected. So another 4 or 5 months, and the rest are infected. So possibly it will come down. Then it will remain as endemic or sporadic. Here and there, forever, we are going to see cases.
Another question that I want to ask is, instead of worrying about COVID-19, shouldn't we really be worrying about diabetes, obesity, and heart diseases, because they are the main killers?
100%. No, you have asked a very good question. In fact, we did a webinar on this, and we have written about it also, me and my wife. COVID, we see it as a triad of new virus, new food, and new lifestyle. These three combined together. It's a very interesting virus. It enters the human body through what are called as ACE2 receptors. These ACE2 receptors are the ones which have a role in controlling blood glucose, blood pressure, immunity, inflammation, so on and so forth. Now, this is why we see complications happening in people who already have one or the other premorbidities. Some of them very obvious, known diabetics, known hypertensives, or somebody who is morbidly obese. But there are now papers which suggest that in the younger population, even a body mass index of 23, which is just above or upper limit of normal, can also put them at risk. So essentially, COVID-19 joins with the new food and the new lifestyle and creates problems. So you cannot do much about COVID-19 virus. But as you rightly pointed out, we can definitely control our food and we can definitely control the lifestyle. Now, over the past 70 years of India's independence, this is very interesting data. The incidence of diabetes when India became free from the British rule was 1%, and the age of onset of type 2 diabetes was 60 or 65 years. So it was affecting rich people, landlords, and such other at their 60, 65 years of age. At that time, the poverty in India was 78%. All right. Now, I am talking of 2014, 2015. Now the poverty has increased by 23 crores. So we won't go into that. So 2014, 2015, India had poverty of 17%. All right. And diabetes in 13%. So we brought down poverty from 78 to 17%. The diabetes went up from 1% to 13%. You make calculations and you will find that they're directly linked to one another. Plus, I told you that in 1940s, 47, it was in the age group 60, 65. Now diabetes is striking very young. No, some teenagers are also having type 2 diabetes. So why? What does it mean in one sentence? What a 65-year-old rich man was eating by 1947 50s. Same amount of food is now available for an ordinary Indian, middle class, lower middle class Indian in his 30 or 20 years of living. No, so that amount of food that is being consumed is what is getting translated into all the modern years. That's why you are seeing young diabetics, you are seeing young heart attack patients, you are seeing more obesity, particularly in the urban areas. So therefore, as you rightly said, COVID is a problem. I am not denying COVID is not a problem. COVID is a problem, but it is a problem when it runs piggyback on these what we call as non-communicable diseases. So therefore, more important thing that we need to do to protect ourselves and to prevent deaths from COVID is to take care of diabetes, obesity, blood pressure, heart disease, and such things.
To control obesity and diabetes, you have developed a diet and a lifestyle program through your Spandana Metabolic Center. Can you give us details of your recommended diet?
No, dietary recommendation will depend on what they're suffering from. Each person is different. See, the last 15 years, me and my wife have been working on this. She is a dermatologist. She has done a lot of work on relationship between skin disorders and diet. And in fact, skin is the mirror of what is happening inside the body. So there are several markers of metabolic syndrome on the skin and several diseases like psoriasis, vitiligo, acne vulgaris, so on and so forth. She has done a lot of work on those areas and their relationship to diet. And from my side, I have been advising diet to my patients of obesity, diabetes. In the last 15 years, I have those who are interested to follow the diet, I have been advising them a diet and asking them to stop their tablets, particularly for diabetes. Hypertension, they have to continue. So it has helped a lot of people. And PCOD, for example, which is also a related problem. Young girls with PCOD and they become, they find it difficult to conceive. So they are helped by the diet because the mechanism is same. All of these, the mechanism is high insulin levels in the blood. High insulin level in turn caused by high insulin releasing foods, which are, as I said, the newer foods that we have been eating. So that is a link. But in general, people have to give up sugars, fruits, maida, fried food, and all these newer foods in general. But specifics, for example, a diabetic will need a little more stricter diet. Then he'll have to change his medicines. So it is unfair for me to say that, because then if somebody stops the continues the tablet and ends up in hypoglycemia, it will be a problem. So, but overall, everybody should give up sweets, sugars, jaggery, honey, and fruits and fruit juices, and maida, corn flour, all the processed foods. These things should be given up, no doubt about it. And same diet, giving up these things will reduce the inflammation. And within a week or so, other day somebody asked, no, your diet will take 1 or 2 years. How does it help COVID? No, it may take 1 or 2 years for weight reduction to happen. But the reduction in inflammatory pathways, inflammatory markers, and setting right the dysregulated immune system, which is really causing the problems in COVID, that will happen in a week or earlier than that. So therefore, anyone with COVID or facing COVID should give up these things.
Okay. But the popular opinion among people is that fruits are a good thing. They say apple a day keeps a doctor away. But here you're saying it's the opposite. Sorry.
No, so I'll tell you why we have been saying this. A lot of eyebrows are raised. Even doctors do not want to accept what we are saying. There are two things. One is you type anywhere about sucrose and health. Everywhere you will read that sucrose, which is table sugar, is bad for health. All right. Now, what is sucrose? Sucrose is glucose plus fructose. It's a disaccharide containing 1 molecule of glucose and 1 molecule of fructose. So what is fructose? Fructose is fruit sugar. So now there are several papers which are blaming fructose more than glucose for the metabolic syndrome and obesity. So all you need to do is go to Google or any search engine, type fructose plus anything. fructose plus obesity, fructose plus hypertension, fructose plus cancers, fructose plus diabetes, fructose plus fatty liver, fructose plus immune system, fructose plus dementia, anything you can type. So you will see lots of research papers that have been published. So again, as I said earlier, whatever we are saying is not, none of these are from our pocket. A lot of research is going on, but we keep reading the papers that are published. That's what it is. So fruits are fructose, and we don't need to eat any fruit. We get all the vitamins and minerals that we get from the fruits, we'll get from vegetables. So that is the second point I would like to make. All the studies that have been done on the goodness of fruits have combined them with vegetables. There are hardly any studies where they have separated fruits and vegetables and done studies. No, that's the problem. So whenever you read something benefits of fruits, you will say fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. So therefore, it is very difficult to separate the two as far as the studies are concerned. But the vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, whatever the fibers, whatever good you are supposed to be getting from fruits, they are on the skin of the fruit, not much in the pulp, and the skin you don't eat. But all those are also available to you from the fruit vegetables that you're eating. So for vitamins, minerals, and fibers, you can eat a lot more vegetables than the fruits.
Okay.
And the third thing is, see, when we were kids, if we were going to a vegetable market, central market or wherever, there will be about 80% or 90% shops will be selling vegetables. 10 or 20% will be selling fruits. And vegetable vendors never sold fruits. You go to any market now, it is the other way. Every vegetable vendor, 60% is selling fruits, 40% is, in the sense, people have switched over from eating sweets to fruits, thinking that fruits are good. But unfortunately, or what do you say, scientifically speaking, biochemically speaking, sugars and fruits are the same. I've explained how it is.
Okay. Then if we stop eating fruits and bread and sugar, what can we eat? What should we
Everything
be eating?
else, a lot of things to eat. No, fruits and sugars are not our food at all. A lot of other things. Eat vegetables, eat nuts, eat eggs, eat fish, eat chicken, eat mutton, eat any meat. All these are available.
Okay. Okay. I've also read somewhere in one of your websites that Kakilayas have a very sharp and pointed nose. Is it true? Do all Kakilayas have a very sharp nose?
I have put it on my family's page. Yeah, Kakilayas have all of them have a sharp nose. Some of them have a square at the tip. It comes from our father's side. So Kakilayas and all my cousins also. Most of us. There may be one or two exceptions, but most of us have that. It is what we have inherited from our Kakilaya family.
And switching from health to politics, you're also you're a politically active person, and you speak your mind. And sometimes people like it, sometimes they don't. But you are a believer that we have to speak what we think is true. And will you stand by that, or do you ever feel like I should only stick to medicine and I should not tell my political opinions?
No, to be let me make it very clear. See, I am not politically active. See, I'm not actively working for any political party. I am not any office bearer in any political party or any political organization. Let me make it very clear. Now, my political leanings have definitely got to do with my father. All right. My father and partly my mother also. My father was a freedom fighter. While doing his intermediate and his BA in Mangalore LHS College, he got attracted to the freedom struggle. He participated in the Quit India movement. He was arrested by the British police. Then he joined the Communist Party. Till his last breath in 2012, for 70 years, he was a member of the very same party. And in 1952, he was only 33 years of age. And he was nominated to the first Rajya Sabha from the Madras presidency, Madras state. The party chose him He was only 33 years, and he was sent to the House of Elders. He was there for 2 years by turn. Then his tenure ended. And then we recently had a centenary, so I have brought out that book on whatever interventions he did in Rajya Sabha. It makes a very interesting read. So he was a very well-read person, and from 52 and all along, he was the leader. He was the secretary of Karnataka reunification movement. Akhanda Karnataka Rajya Nirmana Parishad was the organization of which he was the general secretary. He was one of the first voices to raise the demand for reunification of Karnataka in Rajya Sabha. And then he is one of the stalwarts of the Karnataka Land Reforms Act, being a son of a landlord himself. So he wrote that. He played a major role in shaping Karnataka's Land Reforms Act. And then he participated in Goa's freedom struggle. He was a writer, and he was awarded by the Sahitya Academy for his work. So, and my grandfather, my mother's father, was also a freedom fighter. So I am born to such a family. And my house, if you come now, we have all the books, about 3,000 books that my father had in his library. So I have not read all of them, but some of them. For example, Bhagat Singh's works and not others. I've had profound influence on me, and they have shaped me what I am today. So essentially, it's all about scientific temper. It's all about questioning. So which I have been brought up like this, and I continue to do. So the problem is whenever I need to speak. See, as a doctor, when I have to say something, I say something. And I say with all responsibilities. I was given an opportunity to write a column in Vijay Karnataka, but then in Kannada Prabha by Sugata Srinivasa Raju when he was the editor. And that about 77 of them, the anthology was brought out by Nava Karnataka. Each and every article, the column that I wrote, if you go through, no, I'm not praising myself, but I'm just telling you the effort that I put in to write each one of them. Each one is well researched, and with all the references that are available. Nothing is fake in that. So that's what I am, and that's how I write. So, but see, one of the articles I had written about the cognitive dissonance, in Kannada I called it Grahikegala Sangarsha. It is impossible to please everybody. There are 138 crore people in India. So each one will have his own worldview, his own understanding of things around him. But I will not know. I do not know what is passing through your mind. So if you want me to write what you want me to write, now how do I know what you want me to write or say? So as a doctor, as a man of science, as a person who has been brought up by a man who was a freedom fighter and who gave up his everything for the country and countrymen, I have my worldview, and whatever I read, I also read from that point of view. So naturally, it will be there. But whatever I am saying is based on science. If somebody sees politics in it, that's not what my intention.
Now, even to speak freely and openly, especially in coastal Karnataka, it's a little difficult. Even for a rationalist like Narendra Naik, he may face death threats like he has faced in the past. And if we raise questions, even in a scientific way, a majority of the people will criticize us, even if it is a scientific fact. How do you think rationalists, especially young rationalists, should behave in Dakshina Kannada?
No, I wouldn't entirely agree with you. I will not agree with your statement that majority will oppose. No, it is other way. See, this has been my experience in whatever WhatsApp groups I was in and or I am in, and even in the public domain. You just see the incident that happened the other day. Lot of people came in support, and they said he's our doctor. There is so much. I was overwhelmed by the support. I'm not going to the right and wrong of it, but all I'm saying is, so I don't agree that majority of the people don't like what me and you or Narendra Naik or anybody is doing. Now, just take the example of Professor Narendra Naik's that short video, which was removed by YouTube. Now, when one politician said you put lemon drops into your nose, Narendra Naik immediately he brought out a video. explaining it could be dangerous and don't do it, it doesn't prevent corona. I'm sure that one video of his was, even if YouTube removed it, it was spread on, shared on social media. It became viral in no time. Lot of people saw that, and that whole thing died down in 2 days. I'm sure Professor Narendra Naik's that short video, changed the whole equation, whole thing. So I don't agree that majority are against us or don't want to listen. No, in fact, they want to listen to us. They want to know what our point of view is. That is there. So that is one reason why we need to speak. This is what I would say. Tell all the rationalists. Be a rationalist. And see, I have been writing and speaking and all that for how many? A lot of so many years now. But I have not faced any threats. And nobody has even called me or threatened me. Even other days, somebody would have posted some messages somewhere on social media or on the platforms, web platforms, but nobody called me or abused me or any such thing. So I know all of them, heart of heart, they know that what I am speaking is truth. But they're the inconvenient truths, I'll put it that way, which are not convenient to their own belief systems. But definitely one day or the other, they will realize, okay, this man had. Now, for example, you take lockdown. When I, in March 13th, on March 13th last year, called it a police decision of the government, a lot of people criticize it. But now all are saying, or many are saying, Doctor, what you said the other day is very much true. It seems to be not yielding any results. All right. So we need to, if I am convinced with my science, with my knowledge, and as I said, whatever I am saying is not from my pocket. It is after doing a lot of, and as a doctor, I cannot put anybody in trouble. See, if you read all the articles or some of the articles that I have written, whether it is on diabetes or statins or even the statements that I made here, I am very, very careful in choosing my words or writing my words. Now, there is a reason for that also. There is an article which I read when I was in, I think, first PUC or second PUC, Critical Reading, Careful Writing and the Bermuda Triangle. This article was published in a book brought by Science, Non-Science and Paranormal. I don't know whether that book PDF may be available. This was brought out by Professor H. Narasimhaiah, who is a guru for all of us. He is a rationalist and the Gandhian. Under his leadership, this book was brought out. And this particular article is there in that book. That's where I read it. It's available on Skeptical Inquirer website. It says how you should read a research article, and whenever you are speaking something or writing something, how careful you should be. You shouldn't say anything that will harm another person. No, suppose I say, don't do any tests, they're all wrong, they're all mafia. No, somebody may take my advice and stop doing tests and taking treatment, and he may suffer. So I should not do that. I should be very, very careful in what I am saying. And I have always been like that, whatever, whether it is corona or not corona, diabetes, whatever. Anyway, so I personally believe, and my own experience is that majority of the people want to know the truth. They want to know the scientific facts, and it is our duty to tell them the truth and put facts before them. It is, I would say, about 3 to 4% of people who don't they get irritated when truth is spoken. But I'm sure they too will see the truth one day or the other, and their opposition also will eventually reduce. So therefore, all of us who believe in science, I won't use the word believe, who want to pursue science, who want to learn science and inculcate scientific temper in ourselves, need to have the courage to say what is right or what we know. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kakilaya. This was a very productive session.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Pleasure.